Hello, everybody. Welcome to episode number 35 of the Make Music Income podcast. My name is Stevie B from productionmusicacademy.com. This is Eric Copeland from makemusicincome.com. Today, we'd like to know, do you ever feel like perhaps somewhere along the way you made a mistake that took you down the wrong path in your music journey? Or perhaps led you astray from your goals or your vision for how you wanted things to be? If so, what was it? How did you adjust to it? How did you learn from it? That's what we want to talk about today. And on the flip side, we're also going to talk about our biggest successes. Not only our biggest failures, but our biggest successes along the way to being full-time music producers. So that's what we're going to get into today. And before we do, Eric, give us a little recap of your last week. How's it been going?
It's been going good. I have started to work with sheet music more. I'm working on a video about it right now. This is something I really haven't explored yet, but it's part of the publishing part of this channel that I really want to get into. And so sheet music, yes, the oldest and first way people made money with music, other than live performance, I guess, but certainly a way that I think that we can make. I've seen income coming in over the past few weeks, and most of it is just from putting works up online there, especially for people who play piano or do other kinds of instruments and things like that. So I'll be talking about that in my video. That'll be coming out here soon. I had 2 more taxi forwards. I'm 3 out of 4 in the last week, and 5 out of 9 in the last 9 forwards. Although it should be said that those 5, I think only maybe 1 was written for the brief, or maybe none. They were all songs I had already that were fit. Now, to be fair, probably 1 or 2 of them were written for previous briefs, and I've resubmitted them. So when I think about it. But again, unless I get contacted by someone, does it mean anything to get forwarded, or did I just pay money to have someone deem a song okay to go somewhere and it doesn't? Right. Then I don't get any response. So we'll have to just wait and see. A disappointment, a failure this week was I was rejected by Motion Array, who tried to sabotage our last podcast try. I think
they did.
This is our second taping of this, and I think it went out mysteriously right as I talked about a Motion Array rejection. But anyway, again, it was an electronic thing, and I think they just don't like my electronic stuff. So I think I might go back. I've got some jazz things in the pipeline right now that are getting ready to go out, and some piano things. So I'll go back there and get that all going. Otherwise, just trying to find time to do my channel and to do all the music things I want to do and keep clients happy and go teach every single weekday. So it's always a lot. So, but we keep going and we keep making music income, and that makes it all worth it.
Yeah. Well, I hear you, man. I've got the fan blowing on me right now in case anyone watching wondering why my hair keeps moving.
He just wants to look sexy.
And got the Aerosmith hair going on here.
Just because you have hair, it's like, hello, everybody.
It's actually a reasonably hot day here in Vancouver. Yeah, man, I've been working on the road trip brief. Did I mention this to you? This is my latest art list, brief. They've got me working on American Road Trip. That's the name of this cool package of tunes. It's basically like up-tempo folk kind of pop. A lot of work, but I'm really enjoying it. It's been great. I think I mentioned to you last time we spoke that my 90s hip-hop track was doing really well on Motion Array. I just put out a video about that this morning. You can take a quick sneak peek and look at that session if you want to. Basically, it's cool to see that some of my experiments are doing well on libraries. It's always fun when you try something kind of new and it works.
Yeah, what's the one called that's doing well? A Good Time, or it sounds good, or something like that?
Oh, that's real. Oh, that's real good.
Oh, that's real good. Yeah, I listened to that yesterday. It is real good.
Thanks.
It's doing really well.
Yeah. I should have more than 2,000 downloads, mostly probably for that song, just for this month. So it's been a really good month.
Including a bonus or not including the bonus?
That's before they they give you the bonus. So
Wow.
hopefully
Fantastic.
it'll be in the top 20, and then they'll. Anyway, I explain how that works in the video a bit, and then the cool little thing is that the arcade affiliate marketing that I've done continues to be like just a regular source of income. It really truly is passive. That one video I did, it just picks up enough views and enough clicks that I get paid about like $100 every month or so. They give me a payout.
Cool.
And it's like sweet free money. So that's cool.
Awesome.
And otherwise, man, I am trying to get all my work done today and tomorrow because I'm going on another camping trip. It's all we do up here in Canada. We just camp. We just go sit by campfires.
You
in
and the
woods,
missus. All you do is just go around and
just
vacate.
roast marshmallows and sit around and drink beer and go swimming in lakes and oceans and stuff. It's pretty great. So looking forward to that.
But do you have Disney water parks?
No, we don't have
I'll just
Disney
ask
up
you
here.
that. So
I need to fly
we've
down
been
to
doing
Florida.
that the past few weekends. So
So let's get into it.
Sure.
Looking back on your career, what you have a few thoughts about things that you would chalk up to maybe being failures, even though they, we're not talking about failures in a truly negative sense. I think that all of our mistakes and the failures that we made have probably led us in the right direction. That's the beauty of making mistakes, as you learn from them. Looking back, do you have anything that comes to mind with respect to that?
Do you have biggest and next biggest, or do you just have?
I have
were
one.
they all the same?
I have one really big kind of failure. I think that comes to mind. I think.
Well, let's get to our biggest ones first. I'll start. My biggest one was never getting a publishing deal in Nashville. That's really what I thought my future was as a teenager. I thought my goal and my lot in life, ever since I started writing songs at 13, was to write songs and get a publishing deal in Nashville. I actually would, I should say Nashville or LA, because I was sending demos to Nashville and LA, but I was going to Nashville because it was close. I lived in Kentucky. Nashville was 3.5 hours away. Mm-hmm. LA was a plane flight away. And so I would send stuff, and I would go on many, many trips to Nashville, drive down all excited, listening to these songs, knowing that they were going to love them like everyone else did, but they didn't. And they all said they were fine, but they said they weren't what they were looking for. It was a little bit like an early Taxi. I actually did Taxi back then too. And Taxi was you were trying to get songs published through Taxi. You weren't trying to get into film and TV back then.
Right.
It was trying to get a publishing deal with
right.
a major publisher, is looking for these kind of songs. I did that as well. Never got that going. And every time I would go to Nashville and I would meet somebody, a friend of a friend, or somebody in the music business, or I would go to a publisher's office and I would sit there and show them snippets of my first 3 songs, like people do now with Motion Array, or they do with sync licensing libraries, or they do with anything else. I would get told, thanks, but no thanks, not what we're looking for. Mm-hmm. And then I would have that long 3.5-hour drive back to Kentucky or back to Lexington where I lived, and have to tell my family or my wife or whoever at the time that I was living with, and say, I didn't, nothing happened, and it was a wasted trip. But let me tell you what happened as a result of that failure, as a result of that continued failure. Every time I failed, every time I did not get a publishing deal, and I thought I should have gotten a publishing deal, on the flip side, I got just mad. And in my car, I would drive home thinking, there's got to be a way that I could do what I want to do in music. There's just got to be a way. And eventually, that led to me saying, you know what? I'm just going to do it myself. I'm just going to build. I've got an opportunity to work with this group or work with this guy in his studio, and I'm just going to go work there, and I'm going to keep working. And eventually, I built my 6-figure music business, my music production company, that for 20 years was the way my family ate and paid bills. Actually, for 22 years until this year, it was mostly the way that we paid the bills. And that all was born of failure in trying to get a music publishing deal. And then it led me to other avenues, which brought in many years were six-figure years. And so I don't think that would have happened with a publishing deal all the time. I know people who've had publishing deals. They don't have them for 20 years. And if they do have them for 20 years, they're not six-figure deals. You know, we all think we're going to be stars and we're going to have a six-figure life in music, but it doesn't happen magically. Yeah. It happened because I was rejected. And now that company, it eventually led all that experience being a producer and then eventually moving my company to Nashville and starting to make a better living even there. That led to post-Nashville, once we moved away from Nashville, and I started moving into the sync licensing business. Guess what that has led to? Multiple music publishing deals with these libraries that are in sync licensing. So amazing. In many ways, my failing at getting a publishing deal in Nashville was probably not what I really needed. What I really wanted was to get my songs published, and and some of those songs I pitched are getting cut now and have already been accepted to music libraries, exclusive music libraries for TV and film and other uses. So awesome. That's an example of a failure leading to the creation of another kind of income, which then ends up leading to the thing I wanted in the first place.
Over a long period of time too. And that's
yeah.
You know, that's
it's a 25, 30-year ride through, quitting school and then getting in a band and driving around in a van, doing gigs for 6 months across the Midwest, ending up in Chicago, playing in bands there, coming back, and back to Kentucky. And it's a long, long ride.
Yeah, man.
But people who are in their 20s or 30s right now are probably thinking, oh, I just can't make it. Everything seems like a failure. You're young.
Yeah, you're
young,
This
is a
man.
long life, you know? And so...
Yeah, well, speaking of quitting school, I mean, looking back on it, for me, I think the one thing that kind of bothers me a little bit, and I would chalk it up to somewhat of a failure, is just getting swept up in the lifestyle and the culture of being a performing musician. Back in my day, I dropped out of high school when I was 18. And I just dove deep, man. I dove deep into playing music in bands and touring. I just wanted to soak that all up. All they wanted to do back in my early 20s, my late teens, was just party and stay up all night, and play music. And when I moved out to Vancouver in 2003, I was, it's hilarious looking back on it. I stayed in hostels for months. I ate whatever scraps I could find. I made friends with weirdos, and I had a great time. I didn't know anybody when I moved out here, and it was all new.
You still make friends with weirdos, by the way, just FYI.
I am a weirdo.
And so am I.
But yeah, eventually I hooked up with musicians, and I started a band, and over the course of a decade or more, eventually things kind of picked up, and I got pretty busy. I started performing to much bigger crowds, playing festivals, touring regularly. I joined a group at some point called the Funk Hunters, which are like a DJ duo. They're my good friends out here. I was backing them up on vocals and guitar between, I think, 2015 or 2018 or so. The shows, they really blew up out here, and they became massive. And we were playing huge festival crowds, in the tens of thousands. And that's when the sort of the partying and just the craziness kind of reached like a fever pitch. And I certainly don't regret any of it deeply, because looking back on it, I just had such a great time. I was having a lot of fun. But I also felt as though I wasn't thinking about setting myself up for any kind of long-term success. And I was spinning the wheels to some extent. And also slowly but surely doing some damage to my mental and physical health. So again, not a huge regret, but I always kind of look back on those years and think to myself, like, man, if I had just spent a little less time like drinking and partying and a little more time paying attention to like building my film scoring portfolio, or like, you know, actually like working more on my production chops, or even getting into like sync licensing even earlier, I could have had a huge head start on the whole game, you know. And I really feel as though I've always been playing catch up to that. So looking back on that, I kind of wish I'd taken things more seriously at an earlier age, because I think I could have really rode the wave of, you know, when like Audio Jungle was like, you know, people were making lots of money on that and stuff. Like I could have done everything I did, but like much earlier. So I think, you know, hindsight is 2020, as they say, and all things considered, everything has worked out really, really well. But I'm sort of a late bloomer. You know, I didn't take things seriously until a little bit too late, until I was in like my mid 30s. And I think I lost a lot of years in my 20s, just sort of being swept up by the culture of everything that was going on around me. So that would be like, I think you could like, I don't want to characterize it as like as a hard fail, because I learned a lot from it. I learned how to take care of myself over time, and I take really good care of myself now these days. But it's also because I kind of have to. As you know, anyone who's listening to this, like who's my age or older, like, you know, in the 40s, 50s, we just can't. It's not sustainable to just be, you know, a party animal. As you get older, you have to start taking care of yourself.
But, you know, I think that is just a guy thing. And I don't think girls party their 20s away, most of them. You know, I think most girls maybe party to 22 and then they go, okay, I gotta get serious. Where guys will party until the party runs out, and not all guys. Now, this is
not all girls either.
Not everybody's like this, and not all girls are like that. But I'm just saying that it's easy to do because we are in high school and we follow the rules up until we're 18, and we're like, I got this, you know, and we don't got anything. That's why I kind of have a wish that the U.S. and maybe Canada would say no one can go to college, no males can go to college until they're 30 years old. Other than that, you need to go serve in the military or go work somewhere and learn how to take care of yourself before you. And then when you're 30, look at education and go, okay, I think I know exactly what I want to do right now.
Man, you know what? I really think that's true. I think that men in general need better role models and they need better discipline. It's certainly, you know, we're making generalizations here, but like, you know, that what you said about women kind of figuring these sort of things out earlier on average than men, I think there's some truth to that. And I certainly think that a lot of the girls that I knew and grew up with were much quicker to figure these kinds of things out than I was, and probably in looking back on it, they were great influence on me.
And it's probably why there aren't more women in the music business, because they're smarter than us, and they realize that this is no way to make any income.
That's so true.
So, well, that is very funny you should say that, because my second biggest failure is that I blew off college and wasted my 20s. Actually, I wasted my 18 to 26 years, I think. I mean, you could look at all of those as grow-up years where I did learn to take care of myself. At some point in my early 20s, I moved to Chicago and learned how to take care of myself and all that kind of stuff. But still, had I just done what the easy path would have been, study music and get a music degree, and follow my heart and go to that music school that I wanted to go to, rather than just going to UK and partying with my friends and eventually just no. I will say that during all that time, I was still writing a lot of music. I was still going to Nashville and pitching songs. I still felt like that was going to be the answer. And then I would come back and go to school and English or math or even, you know, music classes that I might have been taking. I did not major in music, and I wish that I had just done that. I would have got through school much faster. I could have just played trombone and been in the marching band, the college marching band. I had a lot of friends from high school that were. If I had just done that. But I was too cool. I knew what I was going to do. I was going to be a songwriter, and I was going to go to Nashville and all this kind of stuff. Well, I never did. I mean, I tried, but I ended up, just partying and whatever, and playing gigs, little gigs here and there, and doing different stuff. And I guess none of it was wasted. I learned a lot of stuff. I wrote a lot of songs during that time. And during those years, there are songs I wrote that are even being signed today into music libraries and that are in music libraries already. So it wasn't totally wasted.
Yeah.
But
yeah.
It is a regret. It is a major regret. But I also know that at 18, I could care less about music history, music theory. I knew better than that. I knew what I wanted to write, and it had nothing to do with that kind of things. Now, maybe if there had been schools like there are now, where I'd been able to go in and learn recording and all that kind of stuff, and there weren't many schools available at that time. This was a long time ago. But here's what it led to, though. It did lead to me being in bands. It did lead to me trying to go off and quit. I did quit college to go off and get into a band, which led me to Chicago, which led to life experience, which led to taking those years and playing in a band. But I also woodshed it up in Chicago with my keyboards and really learned to sequence and to work on my, when I say sequence, I mean program my what you would call now working in a DAW, but DAWs weren't around then, so I just had an 8-track sequencer that I learned to program in, and learn to arrange and all that kind of stuff, and kind of wrote songs and taught myself how to arrange in that way. And it led to that, and then eventually it led to me realizing that I had all these college hours that I attempted from 18 to 21 or so, and going back and getting my bachelor degree in my 40s, much more focused, and getting it in music history of all things and music business. And then last year finishing my master's in composition, which was my first love, which was what I wanted to do, which is be a composer, songwriter. And now that those things have led to a new teaching income that supports my licensing and other music addictions. So it has come full circle from a failure to a success, and I think that can always be the case if we're careful.
Yeah, man, that's a wild ride.
And they've been going on at the same time, both these rides, by the way.
Yeah, well, you know what? Thinking about like what I was saying earlier about, kind of wasting my time, but eventually getting to a point where I sort of figured out how to take care of myself and started taking things seriously. It's funny, one way to sort of look at it is sort of like characterize it as like there's some regret in terms of like the timing of things. Like I was like I said, I was kind of playing catch up with the sync licensing game, and I feel like I caught that wave too late to some extent. I wish I had been on it earlier. That being said, I think looking back on the timing of COVID, especially, that came along at literally the perfect time in my life. I was very, very lucky. And I always think about, man, that would have really sucked if COVID happened when I was 25. And I don't know if I would have been prepared mentally and physically to accomplish what I did during that time that we were kind of given to sort of reassess our lives. When COVID came along, I was very, very, very well prepared, and in many ways, like I when it came about, I was really worried about about how I was going to come out on the other end of it as well, and I totally understand that it was devastating for a lot of people. There was some aspect of it though that was I had to look at it opportunistically, and it was an opportunity for me to sort of dig in to building up some kind of like a momentum for me in terms of music production and sync licensing, because it was just the world went quiet for a second, and all of a sudden I didn't have to stress about getting ready for my next. Yeah, exactly. I woodshedded. I didn't have to play any gigs, and it was a moment where I realized it's like, oh man, like, because I had a lot of friends who kind of squandered it, right? Like they didn't really do anything. They just kind of sat around and collected, like the government money and sort of just took a vacation. And I was like, no, I can't do that. This is an opportunity for me to like go hard on music production and get set up with the academy, do all these things that I desperately was trying to find the time to do. I just had that moment of peace and quiet where everything shut down around me. I was like, okay, here it is. Like, I just got a real blessing here to and some time and some space to work on this stuff. Let's go for it. And I worked my butt off during COVID, man. Like, those were long days getting everything set up, and I'm so grateful for that opportunity. And it is, it comes with, it's bittersweet, man, because you're reading about the world, the state of the world, and the news all the while, while kind of benefiting from this bizarre situation that we've never encountered before. And I was really well prepared for it when it came along, because I was already working from home. I'd already sort of like curtailed all the bad habits of my life, and it was just like, boom, perfect timing. So
I have a couple of quotes for people who are Christian people or believers, or people who even are not. But there is a verse in the Bible that says all things come together for good. It goes on to say for those who love the Lord. So this is taken a little out of context, but all things can work together for good. The other quote is from Michael Jordan. It's very famous, where he says, "I've missed more than 9,000 shots in my career. I've lost almost 300 games. 26 times I've been trusted to take the game-winning shot, and I missed. I've failed over and over and over again in my life." He doesn't say this, but he also did not make the team in high school on his first try. I mean, he has failed as much as anybody.
Yeah.
And he said, and that is why I succeed. You can't have success without failure. I don't barely know anybody who's had success right out of the gate and only success ever. It just doesn't happen.
Totally.
You have to have failure. And that failure can drive you. The more failure you have, the more it can drive you. Now, some people will give up, and that's the difference. If you give up, then if Michael Jordan had given up after he didn't make his high school team, the world would be a different place. If I had just said, you know what, this music thing isn't working, I'm just going to go do like my dad said and go to work at IBM or do, go into business and something and do business work and hopefully get a job like he did at a big company for 30 years. And but I couldn't have. He didn't either. He was a band leader and did band and wrote songs on the side. I couldn't have done that. I personally, there was and is a fire in me that won't be extinguished. And no matter what I do, if I just take time off and just leave it, it gets even stronger. Mm-hmm. And so you have to take that fire, take those failures, and find a way to continue to survive and succeed, because failure can lead to success. The more you fail, the more you can have the possibility of succeeding. If you can send in 100 submissions to a sync library, but the one that gets through is the one that could make a whole career. So you have to do these things, and you have to be willing to fail. You have
to have the courage to fail. I think a lot of people are afraid to fail. It takes some courage to pursue the music thing, because it's full of failure, man. I mean, it's like exactly like Michael Jordan said, it's like most of his career has been a failure, but we remember him by the successes because they're so massive,
Year after year, they were swept out of the playoffs or beaten down by Detroit. And then all of a sudden, they overcame them and won 6 out of the 8 next titles in the NBA. So, yeah, it's something that you've got to just continue to fight. Mm-hmm. And that's something we don't see in sports a lot nowadays. Even we see people they don't succeed, and so they go off to another team to hope to succeed, and sometimes they do and sometimes they don't. And I think that's how you can define, to me, real winners and real people who are fighting. I think you can respect that,
for sure. I think looking back at another maybe like success that I had. So, and speaking of like, the courage thing, I remember like when was I guess about 16 or 17, the first show I did, like the first real performance I ever did, where I sang and played guitar with my band, was in front of my entire high school, which was about like 2,000 people or so, and I was terrified, man. I was terrified. I'd never really done like a real performance before, and I had insane, deep-seated stage fright. It was a horrifying experience sitting behind that curtain waiting for it to open for the end of the year assembly that I did at my school. It was like, getting through that was a defining point for me as a musician. And looking back on it, it's hilarious that I even experienced stage fright at all. Like now I get up on the stage and I love being there, and it's really been, that was a transformative experience for me that led and pushed me into my early days as a performer and as a touring musician. And I'm grateful for having just taken that leap of faith and going for it and having the courage to do it, because you come out on the other side and you feel really good about it.
And sometimes you could have a success that leads to a failure and then later leads to a form of success. I've had chance things where I have entered contests and I have been in the final two to win this particular prize or this particular contest that was being had, and I would get to go to these special events and perform and or take people in. Usually it was song related, but perform these songs, and I would never win. I would always get second at these contests. But years later, I could probably look back at all the people who beat me or beat me in some way, and those people are no longer doing music. And I am still not only doing music, but making my entire living from it, and have been for many decades now. And decades ago was when that happened. And now, and you could say the same thing about sync or stock or any of that kind of stuff. You could say, hey, I wasn't accepted in this library, I wasn't accepted with this. But eventually that patience to continue doing that led to success. So it's about fighting through the failure, even after it seems like success is coming. You get signed by a library, you think, oh, this is going to be it. Here I go. And then nothing happens. And then later on, you start to see that something did happen. And it's just a matter of persevering, really.
Yeah. Well, the first library that I worked with, they kind of dropped me, like that was a big failure, and I was devastated by that. I just couldn't hack it. Like I couldn't give them what they wanted. I had like one or two songs get signed with them. And I was like, yes, I got this, and then I couldn't replicate that success. And it was brutal. But man, that just lit a fire under me. And like, I was like, okay, no, I'm not giving up. I'm going to keep working harder at the production chops, and I'm going to get better. And sure enough, it worked out.
Awesome. Well, cool, man. I think hopefully if you're listening to this and you feel like you're experiencing failure right now, we'd love to hear about your experiences with failure and success. And you can just write them in the comments below if you're on YouTube. If you're listening to this podcast, you can just go over to the channel. This will be on Stevie's channel when it is published. As far as the video, leave a comment in the comment section. And if you're watching this right now on YouTube and we're premiering it, leave a comment right now. But would love to know your successes and your failures, and especially if you've had a failure that leads to success, because I think that's inspiring. It's like when we have things where I will listen to people's songs. I always ask people to give something negative and something positive. And so when you can turn a negative into a positive, or turn a failure into success, I think that's a cool thing. And so if you can relate those stories, I think that would be helpful to everybody who experiences this stuff.
Yes, absolutely. All failures can lead to success. And we'd love to hear from you guys. So throw those comments down below, please.
Yep. All right.
Cool, man.
Well, everybody, thanks for joining us today. We'll be back next week with another podcast and video. And Steve, any last words?
Well, Motion Array didn't take us down this time.
Not this time. We were able to. Nobody could take us down. No Taxi, not Motion Array. Nobody. We got it going. As far as we know. Hopefully, this won't be a failure. It will be a success.
This is going to be a success.
All right.
Awesome.
All right, everybody. Have a great week. We'll see you next time.
See you guys.
All right. Bye-bye.